Hey, Nigerian XJW Speaks here, otherwise known as Trigger. I hope everyone is doing well. I feel like a part-timer, which I kind of really am. We have past the middle of February now, and gosh, this year is flying away already. What I wanted to talk about today, what's on my mind, is just the way we were taught to mistrust people. I've got a few notes. I'll talk around them, just some of the ways that they sow that seed of mistrust. If I miss anything, please add it in the comments below. I know I've not been great at getting back to them. I do intend to go back. I'm going to have an epic catch up of comments, but that's coming. Okay, so starting with a culture of isolation, a culture of setting you apart, what they call being no part of this world, where even when they're your neighbors, when they're your co-workers, they're not meant to be your friends. And they start that from quite early on. I've talked many times about my experience with my mom saying, you have no business having friends from school who are not witnesses, because what do you have to talk about? And so when you start very young, seeing yourself as other, seeing yourself as different, there is something about blending, like really blending, really accepting someone that makes them feel human to you. I know it's like a weird way to say it, but their humanity tends to shine through more when you're properly blended in. You get used to them. You get used to caring about their feelings, which I haven't put this as a point here, but if you're blended with someone and you see their humanity and you care about them and you, dare I say, even love them, then perhaps the whole concept of them getting destroyed at any moment now, probably that's not going to sit right very well. So that is a sinister thing. They're not allowing you to see their humanity in such a way that you are okay with the prospect of them being cut off at any minute now. So that's that culture of isolation is sort of a key element in how the mistrust sort of starts. Then we have the name calling. They are called the world, part of Satan's system, and when you put the title of Satan on someone, part of Satan's system in this culture that we're in, I think that's the epitome of evil in our concept of the world, at least in the Christian world. So when you link someone with Satan, there's nowhere else to go. So when you call them part of Satan's system, that automatically switches it off. It automatically, makes you not trust them. Just one more on the name calling as well, where they're called bad association. If there are any witnesses listening to me right now, you're rolling your eyes because that's something we heard all the time. And that damn scripture that I can't remember now, bad association spoils useful habit. They quote it all the time. So anyone who is in part of the group is bad association, and who would willingly put themselves out there to be entangled with bad association. So someone's bad, someone's satanic. Obviously, you don't want anything to do with them. You don't trust them. And that's how they keep you out there. A bit of a personal thing that I'm kind of ashamed to say, but in my defense, I was a child. I remember growing up and I would see people outside the religion in relationships, and for some reason there was less value that I placed in those relationships. I mean, that's not to say even the relationships within the religion were shining beacons of love and things like that, but any relationships outside that, there was this sort of cynicism with which I looked at it, because the idea of committing to each other and being faithful and being honest, upright people just didn't add up to these people who were bad association, part of Satan's system, part of the world. To me, they were all lying, cheating, conniving, dishonest people. And I'm ashamed to say that. And so when I was taking those first steps out, I genuinely expected everyone to be dubious, so I was a bit shocked. I was a bit surprised to realize, no, they are just good, straight up people with better morals, better values than people within the group. If you've watched my video about how I left, the sort of general theme of my growing up was hypocrisy, people saying one thing and doing something else. So it was a very pleasant surprise to see that no, everyone out there wasn't lying, cheating, conniving, dishonest people. Just like with anywhere, there are people that are honest and there are people that aren't. And it just worked both ways. So that was a pleasant surprise. And if you're listening right now and you are still in the process of getting out, you're still in the process of thinking about it, I promise you, everyone out there is not cheating, lying, whatever. They're good, solid, honest, genuine people. And some not so much, but that's everywhere. That's absolutely everywhere. And so to sort of wrap that up, I would say that a lot of the times when we leave, we need to reset. Okay, we need to reset our compass. We need to research our expectations. We need to actually figure out what our values are and what our genuine interests are, and align with people, seek out people, friendships that align with that. Not because we both agree with some specific interpretation put forward by 7 men in New York called the governing body, but people that you actually have genuine shared interest, right? Genuine shared values, things that mean the same thing to you. For a lot of people, that is through work, that is parent groups and children's school if you're in that phase, or fellow students if you're in student phase. People that you already have some common interest to start with, and then you go from there. I had to pause there. My son came in the room. So like those shared things that you have in common, and let down your guard a little bit. It's funny. Some of the people that have been in my life since, case in point, my son's godparent, nothing formal, but that's sort of her role. It's always funny when she talks back to when she first met me. This was in, I want to say second year of uni, something like that. First or second year. And the stories of how I used to isolate, how I used to sit by myself. And even when she started to talk to me, I would not let her come to my place. I would talk to her in class only because, she came close, she sat next to me, like, nowhere else, like, I had to talk to her. But yeah, it's funny. I would keep her at arm's length, so many times she tried to come round. I would say no. Eventually, I sort of went over to her place, but I would not let her come to my place. And it took, bless her, a long time. And so, we can laugh about it now, but, we have our guard up so much in ways that's absolutely not necessary. If there's anything we need protecting from, it's this cult. It's this group of people who just take advantage of a situation where the power balance, especially when you're born in, is not in your favor and you're manipulated, and people take advantage of you. Yes, they're good people but the leadership and what they follow, it's not usually in your best interest. That's right, I said it. So yeah, let your guard down, see what genuine interests and values you share, and you might just be pleasantly surprised. And there's no rush, there's no timetable, take your time. But I think the reason I wanted to talk about this, sometimes if you can put your finger on something, if you can understand why you act the way you do, why something feels the way it does, why you behave a certain way, then you can take steps to change it if you want to. If you don't know, if you just think it's weird, if you just think it's your personality, then that can kind of make you think that there's nothing you can do. But if you realize that you were deliberately programmed this way, someone had a deliberate agenda to make you mistrust people and trust just them, then you stand a chance of actually fixing it. So that's why I'm sharing this. If you're wondering, why am I like this? Why I don't trust people? Why I feel so off, so other? It wasn't an accident. This is how it was meant to be, because when you isolate someone, it's easier to control them. When someone is exposed and has other influences coming in, it's harder to control them because there's something to challenge what's been said. So if you can isolate someone, create a barrier between them and everything else, get them to distrust everything else, then they're easier to control, they're easier to manipulate. When the world is too big and beautiful for that nonsense, okay? So if you've watched me for any length of time, you know that my focus here is not in the group itself, but in the moving on, in the making a life afterwards. I have no interest in keeping up with what they're doing. They're not interesting to me in any way, shape or form. If I didn't have family in, I will talk about them last. What I did want to do is have resources out there, which I think for the most part I've covered almost everything that I wanted to cover in terms of the aspects of the religion that I found the most damaging. In terms of the questioning process, put information out there from someone that looks like me, from where I'm from, to say, yes, we are asking questions too. We are asking questions too, and there's some of us that are leaving too. And I think for the most part, I've done what I set out to do in terms of that aspect. So instead of figuring out, the transition afterwards, that's what I'm going to try and figure out in the next few weeks. And you might see a shift, a bit more diversity in the sort of content that I put out, which I know it's not going to be for everyone. I know a lot of people started watching because of the JW stuff, and I appreciate you for that. But as I start to shift and diversify, it'd be great if you stayed. If it's not for you, that's fine as well. But anyway, just to give you a heads up, because I've been thinking about that, and I don't want to disappoint the people who started watching for the JW content. But like I've always said, they don't interest me at all in what they're doing right now. I wanted to highlight the damage they cause, give people permission, not that they need it, to ask questions, and then move on and live my life. I have been feeling something since November of last year, and I don't know who can relate to this. Since around November, there's just been this resistance to being online, social media. The Facebooks, the WhatsApp, the YouTube, the Twitter, Instagram, I wasn't really there anyway. But sort of since November, there's been this sort of resistance to being online. It's like, it feels like too much. So it's been really interesting to see this stuff in the news this week about Facebook and Australia, where, the Australian government is trying to have them pay for some news items, and Facebook, instead of doing that, they've chosen to ban users in Australia. I hear something kicking off as well, some other country that I can't think what the name is now, but there's some other countries that are sort of thinking the same thing. So it's been interesting to see that this week from me essentially partially cutting myself off completely since around October, November last year. And it's just been this resistance to go back. I don't know if anyone else has been feeling the same thing, let me know. It's just been too much. The interaction, the interacting on the online platforms. I think we probably all had enough, since March last year, it's sort of been the way we've communicated. And I think there might be an element of, it's just too much, it's like an overwhelm. And, it has been a source of bad news, since around March of last year. That's where we got a lot of information. That's where we stayed in touch. And as I'm talking about it, I'm wondering whether it's a thing of overload. That's what contributed to that. But let me know if anyone else has felt the same thing. I think for me, I need to reassess the place of that in my life and see how I can use it in a way that's beneficial without being something overwhelming, right? That's me done. Next week Sunday, it's the last Sunday of the month. Usually I do a live stream, and that is the plan. If anything changes, then there won't be one. But I will create an event. That should be done by the Saturday. If we're having one, there will be an event created that you can get onto waiting, and then we can have a face-to-face. I know I didn't have one last month, so that's why I'm just putting a caveat there. But yes, February is finishing next week, which is bizarre. I feel like I've rambled more in this video, but there was a lot to talk about, a lot of tangents, and can I be honest about something? Now that I'm on here, I feel okay. I was a little bit unsure about filming this, but now that I'm here, now that I'm talking, I'm just talking to friends. I know this is not live, but actually I am talking to friends. I'm talking to people who probably get why things feel kind of crazy. So there was nothing to worry about. But anyway, we're all friends here. So yeah, have a good week ahead, and look after yourself. I'll speak to you soon.